My recommendation to all New Yorkers is to stay inside and stay cool.
You think Taylor Swift is going to be 78 degrees and all of her elitist guests?
Call it what it actually is: revolting hypocrisy. New York City is under a heat emergency right now, like a lot of places. Con Edison is cutting voltage in parts of the Bronx and Westchester to keep the grid from failing. City Hall is telling every business and every New Yorker to set their thermostat to 78 degrees. And if you can't stand it, well, there's a cot waiting for you at the Javits Center. Meanwhile, this same weekend, a few miles downtown, Madison Square Garden is hosting Taylor Swift's wedding. Mayor Zohran Mamdani, the same Democratic Socialist mayor who just froze rent on stabilized apartments and is asking regular New Yorkers to sweat it out for the good of the grid, already made a joke himself publicly before the wedding. Better hope Taylor and Travis keep it at 78 degrees too. Haha. He said it like a punchline. I want to know if it was actually enforced, or if that's just a joke you tell about rules other people follow. By the end of this, you're going to see the same story play out 3 times with 3 different sets of people, all of whom will tell you they care deeply about the ones with less. Watch what they actually do the moment it costs them something. My name is Kelly Jackson. This is Still Not Canceled, where we question everything, especially the narrative. Let's start with the policy that was supposed to prove the whole premise of this administration. Mamdani campaigned on relief for working class tenants, and in late June, the Mamdani hand-selected NYC Rent Guidelines Board delivered a 2-year freeze on rent-stabilized apartments, finalized right around June 26th. That's a real policy, and it's being sold correctly as a promise kept. But notice the scope, because it matters for everything that comes after. This freeze covers rent-stabilized units. It's not a citywide relief plan. It's a targeted benefit for a specific population, positioned as proof that this mayor's compassion for the people who have less is more than a slogan. That's the credential. That's the receipt he wants you to remember every time someone questions whether the solidarity is real. Keep that in your back pocket because we're about to test it. At the same time, this administration is cashing in its compassion credential on rent. It's asking the same population to absorb the cost of a heat wave that pushed the heat index past 110 degrees. The city's own emergency management office put out the ask directly. Every business, every New Yorker, set your thermostat to 78 degrees to protect the grid. Con Ed didn't just ask, it actually reduced voltage in parts of the Bronx and Westchester. If your apartment becomes unlivable, the official answer is a cot at the Javits Center, one of 8 facilities the city converted into a cooling shelter this weekend. To be fair to the administration, sort of, this is a real emergency and a real grid reliability problem. Nobody's disputing that the heat is dangerous or that the ask itself is unreasonable on its face. The question isn't whether New Yorkers should conserve energy in a crisis created by a grid that perhaps has maybe been neglected, who knows, but that's another question for another day. The question is who else in this same city during this same emergency was expected to make that same sacrifice, and who quietly wasn't. I wanted to bring in a clip from someone who actually knows this city's housing market from the inside. Cash Jordan. He is a licensed New York City real estate broker who's worked the rental market here for years. He's not a cable news pundit parachuting in. This is his neighborhood, his industry, and his clients living through it. If you haven't started following his channel on YouTube, I highly recommend that you do.
The communists are jacking up the power grid.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hey,
2 questions for you. The first one being, obviously, this is a extremely busy time in New York City with the World Cup and 4th of July. How much of that is that emphasis is being put on this safety plan? And then sort of jumping off of this, it's slightly off topic.
What does that even mean?
Multiple outlets are confirming that Taylor Swift's wedding is happening at MSG this Thursday and Friday.
Temperature's
Anything you
their
can
AC
share on
gonna
that?
be?
And to that point, should New Yorkers be aware of street closures that we saw during the Knicks games and watch parties and those types of things?
My recommendation to all New Yorkers is to stay inside and stay cool. And if you happen to be getting married at Madison Square Garden, you will be staying inside and you will be staying cool.
What temperature you think that wedding's going to be? You think Taylor Swift is going to be 78 degrees and all of her elitist guests, you think they're going to be suffering in Madison Square Garden while you in your own home aren't allowed to turn the AC up past 78 degrees?
You will be staying inside and you will be staying cool. That's the mayor's actual answer on the record when a reporter asked him directly about the Swift wedding. Not, we'll figure out an exception process. Not, let me get back to you. A one-liner that sounds clever in a press room and evaporates the second you think about it for 5 seconds, because everybody in that room already knew Madison Square Garden wasn't sitting at 78 degrees for a wedding with that much money and that much press behind it. Here's the part that should actually really bother you. NYPD's budget for the coming fiscal year landed essentially flat, around 6.4 million, headcount flat too. Mamdani floated cutting it earlier this year, backed off both that cut and a proposed 580 officer increase after pressure from his own base, and landed on frozen, something he seems to really enjoy. Multiple outlets now report that 100 officers deployed around Madison Square Garden for this wedding anyway, with nobody able to say clearly who's footing that bill. Same week, the mayor tells regular New Yorkers to ration their AC for the grid. And Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had the entire planet to choose from. There are venues in a dozen countries that would have thrown a private security detail and never touched a single public resource. They picked Madison Square Garden in the middle of Manhattan during an active heat emergency because it's what they wanted. And it never occurred to either of them or to the mayor granting the exception to ask what it would cost anyone else.
Socialism's inability to solve problems. Yes, he has. Telling people to set their AC at 78 is an open admission of the failure of these policies because we don't have any electricity. There's not enough electricity for people to have their home the temperature they want. That is failure. That's not saving the environment. That's stupidity. And then he goes on. Taylor Swift getting married this weekend. Does anyone think Madison Square Garden, that massive building, is going to be 78 degrees for their wedding? Absolutely not. Big government socialism always takes care of the well-connected while causing pain and deprivation for normal everyday people who live in city-run apartments near a public pool that for the second year in a row is not open when they need it.
Jordan said it better than most politicians ever will by accident. Socialism takes care of the well-connected. That's not a slogan from our side of the aisle. That's a description from someone who works in this housing market every day, just narrating what he watched happen in real time. Call it what it actually is: revolting hypocrisy. Not irony, not a coincidence of bad timing. Every person in this story built their public identity on caring about the ones with less. And the moment caring about the ones with less would have cost them something personally, they didn't hesitate. They just did the opposite and hoped nobody was keeping score. Nobody in this story had to change what they wanted to do. They just had to make sure the press release cycle moved on before anyone added it up. We just added it up. If you're into this kind of under-the-radar reporting, the stuff that the bigger outlets won't touch or won't connect the dots on, hit like, subscribe, and join the community. I would love to have you as one of my first 100 subscribers. That's how this channel keeps digging. Comment below with what you want me to dig into next. I read every one of those comments. My name is Kelly Jackson. This is Still Not Canceled, where we question everything, especially the narrative. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.